Coming up on show 627, Top Gear caught red-handed, Mercedes recalling the EQC, and a big auto merger. Plus, historic results for the Model 3 here in Europe and another Model Y spotted in the wild. Well, good morning, good afternoon or good evening wherever you are in the world. Welcome to EV News Daily, your edition for Thursday, 31st of October. Happy Halloween. My name is Martyn Lee, going through every EV story that I can find online every day and whittling it down to save you time. Thank you to myev.com for helping make this show, where they've built the world's first marketplace all about buying and selling EVs. If you're in the USA, you are so lucky to have this as a resource. You can sort the cars by price if you want to. You can sort them by lots of different criteria to really find the one, maybe the model, the exact make and model. If you're after maybe a Nissan Leaf in the USA, I was looking at myev earlier this week and there's loads of those for sale, for instance. Alright, let's start with the big news of the last 24 hours. Some would say it's a storm in a teacup, and it's kind of sapped the will to live a little bit from me, because ultimately 0 to 60 times don't matter. Quarter mile times don't matter. I don't think I've ever done a 0 to 60 time in anger on purpose, as it were. The quarter mile time, who cares? It's never going to be used in the real world, and frankly, if you are doing that kind of driving, you're probably doing it unsafely unless you're on a track. But there is a bigger issue here about the way media treats electric vehicles, and specifically the way that media treats Tesla. Alright, where do we begin? Okay, let's start with what I'll call the Top Gear saga. But the background to it is this, which I've seen some common misconceptions about today. The Top Gear TV show and the Top Gear magazine are different, and yet they're the same. Let's say there's a dotted line between them. The TV show is not the magazine, but yes, they're called the same thing. So we know the TV show is nothing to do with motoring anymore. And I don't think I'm being harsh by saying that. We found that out when Elon Musk sued them over them showing the Tesla Roadster back in 2008, wasn't it? Being pushed back into the Top Gear garage, saying that the battery was dead, when actually the data, the telematics that beamed back to Tesla HQ showed that the battery still had over 20% battery in it, because it's scripted entertainment. The storyline was far better if you said the electric car ran out of electricity, even though it didn't. And even the Lord Justice that ruled over this case when Elon brought a court case against Top Gear, the Lord Justice questioned Top Gear's influence over people who are into motoring, because we didn't see it as a motoring show. So they got away with it, and Top Gear were found innocent on that. You see, it's just scripted entertainment. Top Gear magazine, on the other hand, is, I think, more about motoring, and I'm a big fan. And I'm a little bit sad today. I really love their YouTube videos. The presenter, Jack Ricks, the deputy editor, has been making them for a while now. I think he's really grown into being a really good TV presenter. Great communicator, great storyteller. And that's why I felt really sad today when they tried to pull a fast one over the viewers that trust them. They got caught out. And late today, they even had to issue a very carefully worded emergency clarification after even Elon Musk himself confirmed the numbers that they showed for the Model S were not the tests that were being done in the video. Let me explain what happened and the furore over the last 24 hours. Let's start by trying to sum up, courtesy of Teslarati, Top Gear's saga involving a drag race between a Tesla Model S Performance and the Porsche Taycan Turbo S. And it continues to unravel, as Elon Musk himself has now expressed his comments on Twitter, and the motoring publication has now posted an update trying to defend themselves following the release of a thorough analysis of the video, in which it was suggested Top Gear did not engage launch mode and full ludicrous plus capabilities. Elon Musk took to Twitter to offer his take on the two vehicles' bout. According to Elon Musk, Top Gear did miss the real performance of the Model S, especially since the numbers published by the motoring publication were inconsistent with what other Tesla owners have recorded on their vehicles. Well, from Inside EVs, they explain how this all started. Brooks at Drag Time. There's a YouTube channel called Drag Times, and the guy behind it, Brooks, put out a video that contends that the side-by-side matchup of the Model S and the Porsche was faked, and he says he has the numbers to prove it. Well, according to Brooks, the numbers for the elapsed time and speed of the Tesla were exactly the same to the 100th of a second as those published 2 years ago on the Top Gear website when they pitched the Model S, an old version of the Model S, against Mercedes-AMG C63. And we think he's onto something. His point, being a drag expert, this is what he does, his channel's all about drag racing, is it would be against the laws of probability on 2 different days, 2 years apart, with a car that's mechanically different, a Raven Model S using the new motors, the new drivetrain, to do an identical 0 to 60, an identical 0 to 100, whatever it was, an identical quarter mile, to the 100th of the second. He posited that all Tesla had done is copy-paste their figures from 2 years ago. Well, what's happened here? Is it possible that Top Gear made a drag video, and yet the numbers that they flashed up on screen, because they did the video, they showed you the race, they flashed some numbers up on screen, is it possible that Top Gear would put the numbers on screen, not from the race we just watched, but from an entirely different car on a different day with a million different variables? Surely even the BBC wouldn't sink that low. Yeah, they did. We've now had confirmation from the, like I say, a very PR-worded, reads to me like a legal explanation. They sound terrified of being sued again. Top Gear did confirm that following the drag race video they made, 0 to 60, quarter mile numbers, etc., the ones they showed on screen were not from the race that they did with the Porsche Taycan. Here's part of Top Gear's statement. They said this, and I quote, "These were the numbers we recorded in a Model S on a previous occasion." And I'll break in here. They don't say what it is, but we know it's 2017, 2 years ago, different car, different drivetrain. Right, back to the quote. "We ran them because these are the best figures we've achieved in a Model S to date, so we know that's what the car is capable of. And just to be clear, the Tesla was in Ludicrous Plus mode, the battery was preconditioned, and both cars had around 85% charge before the first run." End quote. This is journalistically very, very dodgy ground. So they've tried to explain themselves that they did a drag race, they posted numbers on screen, and the numbers they posted on screen were actually better than the numbers they got when they were doing the drag race recently, and that what they did 2 years ago was even quicker. This opens up a whole new hornet's nest. And it must sting. It must really sting for what is, I believe, a good group of journalists. And at their core, a group of people who are trying to do their best against declining print sales. You wonder what pressure they're under, but I believe they're good people. They've now issued this apology, this clarification, because any good journalist would never want to be found out like that, trying to con their readers, their viewers. What's worse is, had it not been for this online storm, this uncovering thanks to these people online, the logical alternative to that was actually they would never have admitted it, because they only admitted it days after and under intense pressure, and even from Elon Musk himself. What stopped them saying? So they made the video. What stopped them saying? Here's my question to Top Gear. Why didn't they make this video and say, hey, we did 5 test runs, and for the life of us, we can't get it to go faster than a car we used 2 years ago. It's a Raven edition. It's got a new drivetrain. We're in Ludicrous Plus. It's got a different battery, I believe, in the Raven model. I think they're onto the 4th or 5th gen battery. Neelan knows more about the generation of batteries. It's essentially the same, but it has been upgraded. New motors, more efficient. That would be really interesting to go, look, we can't. So here are the numbers on screen of what we did 2 years ago. Even if they didn't want to make a song and dance like that, they should have put a disclaimer on screen. That would be the journalistically correct thing to do. But they didn't put a disclaimer on screen. They haven't deleted the video. And so anyone that's not aware of this would look at the race, look at the numbers they post on screen afterwards, and assume, it's a fair assumption to make, that those numbers are from the race they just watched, and they are not. And they've issued this weird PR statement trying to sound like they're doing Tesla a favour when they faked the numbers they put on screen. It makes me really sad, because the Taycan could well beat the Model S. The Taycan, in the spec they tested, is almost $200,000. Of course, it should be a very fast car. It's got 2 gears. I think the second gear, it's got a 2-gear, it's a dual gearbox. I think the second one kicks in at about 50 miles an hour. So maybe even the Model S would beat it to 60, but then the Taycan takes off. So the Taycan should maybe win this battle. It's a car that's almost twice the price. But through sleight of hand by Top Gear, this underhanded attempt to disguise the truth, even though they say the truth was actually better for Tesla, makes the whole test void. And from what would have a couple of days ago been delighting Porsche execs, now looks like the whole thing is void. The whole video is pointless. The whole thing on which it is based is a lie. It's sad to see the hashtag on Twitter, Top Smear. I have a little magazine collection of when I first started buying magazines, and I missed the first one. I missed magazine 1, but I've got the second ever Top Gear. When I was growing up and I was really super into cars, I've got the second ever Top Gear magazine and all of them all the way through. I'm a huge Top Gear magazine fan, and I'm so sad today. From a comment from one of the readers on Teslarati, he says this: "It sounds extremely shady. If that's what Top Gear did, then why didn't they openly admit it in the article?" Maybe he means the video. Top Gear got caught in a massive lie, and this was spin for damage limitation today. Top Smear has lost what credibility it had left. End quote. And it makes me sad too. I used to buy the magazine all the time. It used to have almost 180,000 readers. I was looking into this today, not so long ago. The latest data I can see from 2016 says 90,000. So clearly, it's not what it used to be. Facing increasing irrelevancy in a digital world. This is why they're making more YouTube videos and things, and people get a little bit obsessed by clicks and views, and it makes me so sad. We need journalists to be trustworthy and not pull tricks like this, and there are significant questions about the motives of Top Gear, which also is frustrating because I really hope, I might be being naive, maybe I'm being blinkered because I want to think the best of them. I don't think they were trying to do anything really shady intel, because people online are being like, they got a backhander from Porsche and stuff. That doesn't make any sense to me. Also, the video showed the Model S running in range mode. Their statement says they were in Ludicrous Plus mode. It's clear on screen it's in range mode. And in Tesla's own words, when range mode is engaged, when turned on in the all-wheel drive vehicle, the torque distribution between the motors is optimized for range, not performance. Now, unfortunately, the poor presenter, or maybe not so poor, I don't know, I like the guy, he's been dragged into this. He's had people ripping into him on Twitter. Understandably, he's been forced to defend himself, to say, look, the video you saw, and this is really embarrassing for him, the video you saw is not the actual drag race. He said, I'm paraphrasing here, we take lots of shots. So like they were filming, they were doing all their filming, and that's why the car was in range mode. So even then, what we were watching is not real. The whole thing is not real. And you think, well, I'd like to think that the video we saw was the actual race. And he's going, no, we filmed loads of different versions, and that's why the car was in range mode. And this probably is the truth. But then you think, well, what do I believe and what don't I believe now? It's just a mess. And it's all over something as mad as a 0 to 60 time and a quarter mile time, which, if I come full circle, really, really doesn't matter for you and I driving these cars in the real world. I'll never own a Porsche Taycan, it's too expensive. There's the issue as well that there's tons of videos of owners of Tesla Model S's, the Raven Edition, on drag strips, on normal road with stock tyres, launch control engaged or not, doing the quarter mile in 10.5, 10.6, 10.7 seconds, not 11.1, which was Top Gear. So why couldn't they replicate that? It's just so many questions which they didn't need to bring upon themselves, sadly. Oh, yes, this has been a real mess. I'll put links in the show notes if you want to read more. Let's move on. The big story today, if it hadn't been for this self-inflicted wound by Top Gear, this would have been the lead item. PSA, which is Peugeot Citroën Group, PSA and Fiat Chrysler, FCA, have agreed on a merger. Hasn't happened, but they've agreed on the merger. However, the details are still open, as the agreement is to be worked out in the coming weeks. It's also open what it means for electric mobility in the new company, says Electrive. Nobody knows yet, but it would create the world's fourth largest automotive manufacturer in terms of sales. Then number 4, they'd be behind Volkswagen, Toyota and Renault-Nissan. The reasons for automobiles, of course. We're not talking anything else apart from cars here. The reasons for the merger, they say, cost and long-term competitiveness. According to PSA and Fiat Chrysler, the merger would generate synergies of 3.7 billion euros per year without closing a plant, but the merged company would not achieve 80% of those synergies until year 5. One thing is clear, PSA and Fiat Chrysler also want to share the incredibly high costs for new technologies like electric cars and autonomous driving in relevant future fields. Both groups are, I don't think I'm being unkind here, correct me in the email me, correct me in the comments if you think I'm wrong. Both groups are behind the curve on electrification. PSA is finally coming out with the Peugeot E208. It's taken a while. Vauxhall/Opel Corsa E and the DS Crossback E-Tense. What about Fiat Chrysler? Well, FCA has the Fiat 500e. Got some hybrids coming, like the Jeep Renegade, but they've not been EV first, EV forward, EV keen. They've barely been EV curious, to be honest with you. So we'll see what happens with this merged group that's forming a huge automobile company in terms of electrification. Both have been developing their own platforms, and it would make sense to use one. But it's also a huge waste of money for one of those companies to now ditch. Both have been, obviously as independent, separate companies, have been making their own EV platforms ready for the future, so there's been some wasted money there. You think they would just use one single platform as much as they can. Okay, let's move on. Daimler is recalling some of the new Mercedes-Benz EQCs, that's the full electric car, the first one from Merck, because of a potentially defective bolt in the differential, the company said earlier this week. According to Reuters, the fault could interrupt torque transmission to the front axle, leading to a vehicle stall. Additionally, if parts of the broken bolts become lodged within the diff and the transmission, this might actually affect the ability to control the vehicle, including the risk of a crash. Daimler said it's a very important recall. Daimler AG has determined that on certain EQC vehicles, the bolt in the front axle differential transmission might not meet specs. Therefore, it can't be ruled out that the bolt breaks over the lifetime of the car. The car maker said, I'll pop a link in the show notes. And if you know anybody that's got an EQC, maybe you have yourself, please do get them to contact Mercedes-Benz. All right, next story. And recently, there was an article in the magazine Evo, which tests performance cars. And one of the commentators in there said that electric vehicles don't live and breathe. And I put out a slightly cheeky tweet saying, actually, combustion cars are incredibly bad for lung health and lung disease. So ironically, electric cars do help you live and breathe. And then I saw this story. And so I say to the man who was writing for Evo magazine, who was complaining about EVs, that they don't live and breathe, have a listen to this story. One mother's exposure to particulate air pollution during her pregnancy is associated with reduced cardiac response to stress in 6-month-old infants. That's according to an open access study by researchers at Mount Sinai Research, published by the Environmental Health Perspectives Writes Green Car Congress. Now, this study is the first to find a link between particulate air pollution exposure in utero and how it can affect heart rate variability, which is a known risk factor for health issues. Variability in how the heart rate responds to stressful experiences, and that's essential for maintaining optimal function of the cardiovascular, respiratory and digestive systems, and also is central to emotional well-being and resilience to stress over a human's lifetime. Air pollution's negative effect on heart rate variability, the actual particulates that pass through a mother into her unborn child, has previously been found to lead to medical and psychological conditions like heart disease and asthma and allergies and mood or behavioural disorders in studies of older children, adolescents and even adults as well. Well, the senior author Rosalind Wright said this, and I quote, "These findings, in combination with increasing worldwide exposure to particulate air pollution, highlight the importance of examining early life exposure to air pollution in relation to negative medical, developmental and psychological outcomes. A critical step in identifying children at risk for costly chronic disorders is identifying the exposures that lead to early vulnerability. Mothers and pregnant women who live near busy roads that are higher, air quality that's worse, where there's more evidence of particulates from the back of the vehicles that we still insist on driving. It's not only hurting the unborn child, but through the course of their life, causing heart issues, which affect so many other parts of their biology. And it just sometimes I try and keep a smile on this podcast. I try and make it positive, but sometimes when you read someone that says, "Nah, don't like EVs, they don't live and breathe," sometimes it really makes me very angry that somebody needs that thrill in their life of a combustion car to fill whatever gap they have, whatever they need, which is fulfilled by a loud, noisy fossil car in their driveway. Yeah, it's very frustrating. But anyway, let's move on. Let's stay positive. This is a great bit of news from JATO.com, looking at European car sales. Okay, here we go. September 2019 was a really significant month for EVs, pure electric vehicles as well, in Europe, as registrations increased by 119% to 40,700 units, boosted by the performance of Tesla, BMW and Volkswagen. Well, Tesla recorded 19,500 registrations and controlled almost half of the pure battery electric vehicle market, as it was boosted by the Model 3. September was a record month for the Model 3. 17,500 registrations in Europe, as it became the best-selling EV for the 11th best-selling vehicle overall as well, and it almost became the 10th best-selling individual vehicle by just a handful of sales. It was so close to being in the top 10. It was the first time in history that an EV has come so close to entering Europe's top 10 model rankings. It would have been top 10 if it wasn't for just, it was so close. It would have been in the top 10 of single model sales. Incredible. And if you're enjoying your new Tesla Model 3, I hope you're having lots of fun with it. I'm seeing more and more of them on the roads, by the way. Those regular listeners to the podcast know that I drive up from Dorset in Poole on the south coast of the country. It's a 2-hour drive I do up to London, and I'm seeing more of them. M27, M3, M25. I'm seeing more and more Model 3s in this country. And you know what? I really, really love that sight. And finally, thanks to Tesla's dashcam feature, we've now got a 3-minute long video of the Model Y, that's the new one, remember, driving in San Jose, and better yet, for much of the drive, it's actually driving in tandem, side by side, with a Model 3. Now that demonstrates an excellent comparison between the two vehicles, writes Electrive today. The Model Y in question is the Midnight Silver prototype with the Power Sports wheels. Seen it on the road a few times before, seen this prototype and got many photos of it, but not really seen it driving amongst other cars on the road. So it's a great apples to apples comparison of what it looks like with other cars. The best comparison we've seen yet with other vehicles, and the Model Y looks actually taller in this video than in previous spottings, says Electrive. I'll pop a link in the show notes if you want to actually watch this video and have a look. They're taking some screenshots as well, really good article, and it's interesting comparing it not just to the Model 3 next to it, but to other cars on the road. I'm liking it a lot. It looks amazing. Remember, Bob Lutz, who used to do something with cars, remember he recently on Autoline on the video, he got woken up from his afternoon nap to make some crazy comments that nobody's going to buy the Model Y. Bless him. Let's make sure we hold him to that, by the way. He doesn't think it's an attractive car. Lovely Bobby boy. Let's talk about our question of the week this week with myev.com, set by one of your fellow listeners, Martyn Young. What were some of your biggest surprises about living with a battery electric vehicle when you got yours? And for anyone who listens who's EV curious, we'll pass on those biggest surprises that you had. Email me, please. hello@evnewsdaily.com. Leave a comment on Facebook and YouTube. Well, there are 256 patrons of this podcast who keep this show going, who fund this show, who make it happen, keep the archive in place, and keep me making it 7 days a week. Thank you for your generosity. If you want to get any of the new shows, you can hit subscribe in your podcast app to get them first and free and automatically. Check out the show notes. You'll see all of my Patreon supporters, from exec producers up, my premium partners, Phil Roberts of Electric Future, Brad Crosby, an Avid Technology, and hopefully a fourth name to add to the list very soon, actually. If you want to say hi on socials, search EV News Daily. Have a wonderful day. Catch you tomorrow. And remember, there is no such thing as a self-charging hybrid.